called out enough for a tie.
Lots of duds this week, though, too, also.
Plenty of duds. We're going to talk about who called out this week. And it's painful to say, but my own quarterback, Cam Newton, certainly called out this week. Had an average of 6.4 fantasy points, only threw 239 yards, had a pick, and had a fumble. So hopefully better days ahead for Cam Newton. He's on a short week going into Tampa Bay. Running back James Conner scored only 6.5 fantasy points, turned 10 attempts into 21 yards. However, did salvage some nice safe floor points in PPR with 4 catches for 44 yards. And then we had Tony Michel, who was a real disappointment because we were hoping for a high. We did get a somewhat high-scoring affair, at least on the Patriots side of the ball, but Tony didn't join in on the party. He only had 14 yards, but on the bright side, he did have 15 attempts. So hopefully next week.
My guy that you said wasn't going to have an impact because of Tony Michel actually scored 10.4 or 10.5 points. Thank you very much.
That's true. That's why fantasy guys do love James White. It gives you that nice safe floor in PPR. You're going to get the catches. And I just thought, there'd be some nice red zone opportunities for Michel. And hopefully in a game next week against the feeble Miami Dolphins team, there'll be a lot more attempts for Michel. Maybe you just don't want to risk Tom Brady at all in a game where they should be ahead by a lot. So I'm looking for a bounce-back week, unfortunately, because D has Michel, and I'll be playing him. But looking for a bounce-back week for Michel. Certainly didn't perform this week. And then we have Devonta Freeman, 1.1 points, turned 8 attempts into 19 yards, and had 3 catches. But very disappointing for Devonta Freeman in his debut, coming back from injury. Wide receivers, you got to throw Mike Evans in there. Averaged 2.8 fantasy points, turned 2 catches into 28 yards, and just a very bad overall performance for Jameis Winston. And, Chris Godwin salvaged his day with a touchdown, but hopefully better days ahead for that Tampa Bay passing attack. And then tight ends, Vance McDonald. Another disappointing performance. We were hoping that those Antonio Brown vacated targets would turn into a party for Vance McDonald, but he didn't join in. He only turned, I guess when you look at the stat line, 2 catches is horrible, but to turn 2 catches into 40 yards.
Hey, guys, I got some breaking news that affects the Raiders' defense. Raiders rookie safety, Jonathan Abram, not only injured his neck's fine, but he tore his whole rotator cuff and labrum, so he's going to be out the whole season.
Now, is that Abram or is that Conley?
Garyon Conley, the
That's
cornerback.
Abrams. That's Abrams. I'm sorry, yeah. Conley's the one with the neck injury. Abram tore his rotator cuff. He's out.
On that one play, on the same hit.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Wow, that's bad, man. That's their whole right
I was
side
trying
of
to ruin you or interrupt you, Dillon. I'm just trying to break that news as it goes, brother.
No, yeah, I feel like I was putting people to sleep anyways, reading all those stats. But just going.
I was listening intently, dude, because I'm getting ready to make some moves, make $1 million move, make $1 million moves.
So, yeah, that's who balled out and who called out. We'll have that every week, and to just give you the top and worst performances. But as far as nice surprises go this week, guys, against my own Philadelphia Eagles, Case Keenum turned in a nice performance. Derek Carr, without Antonio Brown, looked real good. Andy Dalton, all of a sudden John Ross is showing his skills out there, and Andy Dalton's looking sharp. Matt Stafford had a big day. Carlos Hyde looked real sharp the other night against the Saints. The aforementioned John Ross is someone who, if you're willing to pick him up on waivers, who knows when AJ Green's going to come back, and John Ross certainly looks primed for another big day next week against the 49ers. And then you have Larry Fitzgerald, who we already talked about, and his big performance. So those are just a few nice surprises to see players who usually are on the waiver wire, and we just kind of stop to the side and have big days.
Do you think Larry continues his production?
I don't necessarily think he's going to have another game like that, but certainly no lack of chemistry between him and Kyler. I know everyone was really high on Christian Kirk coming into the season, but Larry's the man. I never doubted Larry from a production standpoint, I mean, he's going to get his safe floor of catches. The question has been, can he turn that into yardage? And the answer, at least week one, is yeah. He can give you plenty of yardage and a touchdown. So, do I think you can count on that all season? No. But he's definitely a guy to keep on your bench as to where coming into the season I was like, do I want to just, I've been drafting him and dropping him to pick up someone else, but now definitely have him, if not in your starting lineup, at least on your bench.
Dillon, did you see the injury to your defensive line, Philly's defensive line?
Yes. Malik Jackson has, I guess, a Liz Frank injury.
Yeah, I'm thinking about dropping Philly's defense because that was one reason why I grabbed him, because of the Fletcher Cox and Malik Jackson combination.
Well, I mean, as far as defenses go, I don't like to be married to a defense. I like to play the matchup each week. But you can do worse than, like, for instance, Philly going to Atlanta on Sunday night is a week where I'm definitely going to avoid the Eagles' defense. But in general, they are a very solid defense. And if we're talking specifically about is there going to be a drop-off, I don't think so, because you still have Tim Jernigan and a guy who I'm very high on, Hassan Ridgeway, who some people know, some people don't, but I like them as two guys to step in and fill the hole that's left behind with Blake Jackson going out.
Well, actually an update on a guy that was mentioned earlier by Andy Herman. Jonathan Allen had a second opinion, had a sprained MCL, and it looks like he will only be out a couple weeks instead of possibly with a torn MCL and sitting out for most of the season. So the Redskins got by with a little bit of a good news for the day there.
Yeah, that is good news. I mean, the Redskins, say what you will about, how they're going to finish the season, but there's a lot of young talent on that team right now.
That's a line of nasty.
Yeah, with all the Bama boys and, Dunbar, the guy who a couple seasons ago was a joke, but don't get me started on Kerrigan, dude. I mean, he's been frustrating Eagles fans since he entered the league, but Sweat looks like he's going to be the real deal. So, the Redskins' defense looks fine. I mean, Landon Collins was a good pickup, but, obviously the question is, can that offensive line, hold up long enough to give Keenum time? And the answer week one was, if the play action's working and you can work the bootleg. I mean, Jake Gruden is a good offensive mind. There's no doubt that the scheme is good in Washington. It's just how bottom of the barrel can you get before the product just isn't there. We're finding out in Miami, but the Skins are gonna be that team where you think you got a sure bet in Vegas, and then all of a sudden here comes Washington to ruin the day for you.
Were you worried at all when the Eagles were down 27 or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I was panicking. I was horrified. We both know Ian Spafford because we all grew up together, and I literally had just talked to him previously on Facebook, laughing at him because he called the Redskins defense elite, and we had a little back and forth, and all of a sudden I look at the score 17-0, and it's like, oh my God, I have to delete Facebook, I have to move to Alaska, I can never come back.
I mean, you live in North Augusta, South Carolina, Dillon. You're basically already in Alaska.
So now here I am. I get to keep the Facebook and gloat at the same time, because that is a performance that you look back on and say, that's why we're a Super Bowl winning team, because we can come down from adversity like that. We have the weapons that it takes. We have the defense. We have the veteran leadership. And we have young enough guys to have the speed factor. And, I mean, guys like Darren Sproles, guys like Brendan Graham, I mean, guys who don't get mentioned when you talk about the best players in the league but are so important to the Eagles, they're just irreplaceable.
Do you think Brandon Graham is very underrated?
Oh, super underrated. I mean, people know now because of the Super Bowl and the strip sack, but, I mean, he's still... from what I've read and heard year after year at training camp, Brandon Graham is usually the strongest guy on the field. I mean, he just pushes offensive tackles right off their heels, and he's relentless. I mean, you never see him take a play off. It's just unbelievable. And he's so knowledgeable as far as shooting inside on a run play, setting the edge when it comes to it. And then when it comes time to pass rush, I mean, you know, he's not a sack artist, but he certainly is always getting pressure. And we know sometimes that's all it takes to get an errant throw, get a turnover. So I think Brandon Graham is absolutely a guy that when he's not a Philadelphia Eagle anymore, we're going to miss him a lot. Just like, you know, I don't want to put him up there with the importance of Brian Dawkins, but, I mean, you definitely need an edge rusher that Brandon Graham has been. And I'm just so glad, too, that we switched back to the 4-3 because during the Chip Kelly era, when he was asked to switch to 3-4 and stand up and cover sometimes and do all this different stuff, it made him look bad. And, you know, I think he was a top 10 pick. I know he was in the first round. But switching back to 4-3, it just really shows you some guys are not built for certain roles, and they can shine when you put them in the proper role. You know, it's not always about, well, this guy's a bust. Just get him out of here. You're like, no. You put a guy in a position to succeed, like we saw with Clown the other day. It's constant pressure, just shooting gaps and going after Dalton, you know, and some people want to call him a bust. But I think he was a very important part of that Texas defense, and I think he's going to be a huge part of Seattle. I have been getting to the postseason again.
Clowney never played outside linebacker in college. All his highlights and what made him supposedly the number one pick was with his hand in the ground. It was an example of, and he still was pretty excelled, but I think a lot of his injuries came from trying to do things that put leverage on his legs that he just wasn't built for, and so he's just always injured. I think if they would have just let him play his natural, and he's a pretty big dude to be playing outside. I mean, he listed at like 265, 270 or something like that, and he's not built the way Rashawn Gary is lean. He's a bulkier guy. I mean, so, yeah, again, I guess like you said, it doesn't surprise you sometimes when people are put in the proper position, they excel.
And the funny thing is, I mean, don't get me wrong, because when he was standing up, and sometimes he would do that Aniva type thing where he would like sort of drift toward the line when they were about to snap. I mean, he was super effective sometimes shooting the A gap in those type of plays. But some guys are just strictly pass rushers, and that's why, I mean, a true 3-4 outside linebacker is very impressive to me because they are able to do all those different sorts of things. Like when you think about a guy, I mean, I know is known for rushing the passer, but he's always been a successful 3-4 outside linebacker. So just guys
Preston
like that.
Smith is a prime example of what you're talking about. If you watched him, he played the run well. He pass rushed well. He dropped in and forced coverage inside, and I mean he did all the things as a true outside linebacker in a 3-4. He really did. He showed you all the different things that he's capable of doing in that Thursday night game, Preston Smith.
There was a play, and I know you guys both probably remember this vividly, when he shot the gap on a read option, and he damn near grabbed two guys in one play. He
actually touched both of them at the same time, if you watch it in slow motion.
It was unbelievable. I mean, it reminded me of Javon Kearse, the wingspan of this guy.
He pushed Mitch back inside because of how wide the wingspan was. He pushed him back inside and only got a 1-yard gain.
All I can say is I'm glad he's out of my division because I knew from rookie year that guy was going to be a monster.
You'll see him soon enough in Thursday Night Football, sir.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
But
how's it feel to be
actually,
1-0, guys? I don't even know right now.
There's a stat I just came up with for the Vikings and Packers game this Sunday. Garrett Bradbury for the Vikings was the second lowest graded starting guard in the league last week at 35.1. And even the Vikings writer, this is a Vikings writer who put this out. He even said, welcome to the NFL, kid, ... First week was Grady Jarrett. Second week, Kenny Clark.
Well, okay, I know, Jay, I know you're going to want to dig deep on that, so let me get this in there. I think that is important, don't get me wrong. But also, the Vikings still pounded the ball down Atlanta's throat regardless. So there's that. And it's